Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really big one, debt management and loans.
Yeah, it's a topic that touches almost everyone. We've gathered a lot of material to, really get into how borrowing works.
And when it's maybe a smart move, and importantly, how you can handle it responsibly for long-term financial health.
Exactly. So if you're thinking about a major purchase, maybe juggling some existing debt, or even if you're just curious about the nuts and bolts of loans, this is for you.
You want to get clarity without making it too overwhelming.
Right. We'll pull out the core ideas, why debt exists, how it affects your cash flow day to day, the different loan types, and strategies for managing it all effectively.
Okay, so key questions we're aiming for. When is debt actually useful? How do you manage it without, derailing your other financial goals?
And what are all these different loans? What are the implications of picking one over another?
Right, let's get into it. First off, why do we even need to borrow money? Seems like a basic question, but
It's fundamental. Look, for most people, buying something really big, like a house, entirely with savings, it's just not practical.
right, you'd be saving for decades, maybe retire before you even buy it.
Precisely. So debt bridges that gap. Of course, lenders need protection, which is where things like security agreements, pledges, or mortgages come in. They're linked to the asset.
The classic mortgage, yeah. But it goes way beyond houses, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking car loans, finance for maybe furniture or appliances, personal loans for holidays or weddings.
Credit cards, too, the balance you carry over.
Definitely. And all of this borrowing comes with a cost. That's the crucial part.
Interest and the actual repayment obligation.
Exactly. So taking on debt means you've got this ongoing responsibility. You need to look closely at your income. Can you actually handle those extra interest costs plus paying back the original amount?
But it's not automatically bad, is it? You mentioned that.
No, not at all. It really hinges on why you're borrowing. Getting a mortgage for a home, often seen as a pretty sensible use of, well, financial leverage.
Leverage. Okay, that sounds interesting. Using borrowed money to potentially boost returns.
Sometimes, yes. Strategic debt can potentially amplify investment gains.
Mm-hmm.
Think about an education loan versus pulling money from your retirement savings.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going.
The idea is your future earnings, hopefully boosted by that education, cover the loan payments. Meanwhile, your retirement pot keeps growing, keeps compounding. You protect that existing investment engine.
Protecting the compounding effect makes total sense. And debt can also be like a short-term patch for emergencies or cash flow gaps.
Exactly. Sometimes income and outgoings just don't line up perfectly. Short-term borrowing can be that bridge, helping you handle an unexpected bill or a temporary shortfall without, derailing everything.
Okay, so we get why debt exists, but how do we know if we're taking on maybe too much? You mentioned the debt-to-income ratio.
Right, the DPI. It's a really key metric. Basically, it measures your ability to manage your monthly debt payments based on your gross monthly income.
How's it calculated?
You just divide your total monthly debt payments, mortgage, car loan, minimum credit card payments, everything by your gross monthly income. Lenders look at this closely.
Is there a magic number?
Not really a single magic number for everyone, but lower is definitely better. A high DPI signals that, well, a big chunk of your income is already spoken for just servicing debt. That leaves you quite vulnerable.
So it's not just about getting the loan approved, it's like a personal financial health check.
Absolutely. Yeah. Think of it that way. You gave an example earlier, someone earning 15,000 rupees, paying 7,500 in debt.
Yeah, 50%. That sounds high.
It is. Half their income gone before they even think about food, rent, emergencies, saving anything. It leaves very little breathing room.
And the interest rate and the loan amount itself obviously play a big role in that monthly payment.
Critically so. Higher rates or bigger loans mean higher payments, which pushes up your DTI. You really need to map out your cash flow before you commit, make sure those repayments won't squeeze everything else out.
And it's not just about making this payment, but ensuring you still have some capacity left just in case for unexpected stuff.
Precisely. Keeping your debt servicing manageable gives you that buffer. Meaning you could potentially borrow more in a genuine crisis without tipping your whole financial situation over.
Okay, let's switch tracks a bit. Where does our money actually go? You drew a really useful line between consumption and investment spending.
Yes, this is so important for understanding how spending impacts your future. Consumption spending is, well, money spent on things that don't create an asset that generates future income.
Like eating out, clothes, haircuts.
Exactly. You get the immediate benefit, maybe enjoyment, but the money's gone. It's not working for you anymore. Every pound or dollar spent there is one less working for your future self.
Immediate gratification, but no lasting asset.
Got it. Investment spending, on the other hand, is about creating an asset, something that could potentially grow or generate income down the line, buying stocks, bonds, property,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Building wealth over time. What about something like education? Feels like it could be either.
That's a great point. It's often seen as a gray area. The upfront cost might feel like consumption, but it can be a massive investment in your future earning power.
Right. If it leads to a better job, higher salary.
Then it absolutely contributes to your long-term financial well-being. It highlights why thinking about where your money goes, prioritizing outflows, is so important.
So how should we structure our budget then? You mentioned mandatory, essential, and discretionary.
Yeah, a good budget needs structure. Mandatory stuff is non-negotiable. Taxes, maybe mandatory pension contributions, and crucially, your existing loan payments.
Things you have to pay.
Right? Then essential living costs.
Right.
Food, shelter, utilities, basic transport, the core needs.
And discretionary.
That's the lifestyle stuff. Entertainment, hobbies, eating out, non-essential shopping. The wants rather than the needs.
Okay. And the key mindset shift.
Prioritize saving first, before the discretionary stuff.
Huh?
The formula should be income minus savings equals expenses, not the other way around, which is how many people operate.
Ah, pay yourself first. I like that. And you mentioned automating it, like with SI's systematic investment plans.
Absolutely. Setting up automatic transfers, maybe straight after payday, into savings or investment accounts. It takes the decision-making out of it each month and ensures you're saving consistently.
Right. It just happens. Okay, let's talk practical budgets. Finding the holes where money disappears.
Yeah, it's often not a lack of income that stops people saving. It's how income and expenses are managed or not managed.
Common mistakes.
Not having that clear line between essential and discretionary is a big one. Yeah. Over-allocating to expenses generally, not doing the pay yourself first thing, and simply, well, not tracking where the money actually goes.
It's those small things, isn't it? The coffees, the lunches out, they add up. You suggested tracking everything above a certain amount, like 10 pounds or 50 pounds.
Exactly. Depends on your income, but pick a level. Just the act of writing it down or using an app can be incredibly, well, enlightening.
You suddenly see where it's all going.
People are often shocked, especially with contactless payments or credit cards. It's easy to lose track. Seeing the total spent on, say, takeaways or subscriptions makes the lost opportunity for saving very real. It often changes habits.
So a financial advisor can help plug those leaks. Maybe question the need for the latest phone if the old one works fine.
That's part of it, helping align spending with actual goals, distinguishing needs from wants that might be getting in the way of saving for, a house deposit or retirement.
Okay, what about the opposite? A sudden windfall. Big bonus, inheritance, maybe even lottery winnings, though less likely.
Yes. Windfalls are great opportunities.
Yeah.
The key thing is your household was managing without that money before it arrived.
So don't just absorb it into regular spending.
Exactly. A good chunk should ideally go towards future goals. And it's a perfect time to look at your debts. Can you prepay some, especially the high-interest ones?
Makes sense. Use that unexpected cash smartly. But you also said don't rush into investing it immediately.
Right. There's no need to make hasty decisions. Park it somewhere safe and liquid easy-access savings while you think things through properly.
How you allocate it depends on the size, obviously.
Of course. A huge inheritance needs a different plan than a small bonus. But the crucial thing is, don't start relying on future windfalls to bail you out of bad financial habits. That's a dangerous game.
Good point. Okay, let's get back to the fundamentals of debt itself. You broke it down into purpose, cost, and maturity.
Yes, these are core pillars for managing debt responsibly. First, why are you borrowing? The ideal is for assets that might appreciate, like property, or things that increase asset value or earning potential, like education or maybe home improvements.
What about riskier things?
Financing volatile investments with debt, like buying stocks on margin. Very high risk. Losses get magnified. Generally best avoided unless you really know what you're doing.
And borrowing for everyday expenses.
That's usually a red flag. A sign you're living beyond your means. Can easily become a debt trap. Short-term debt for a genuine temporary cash flow issue? Okay, maybe, but be very aware of the risks and have a clear repayment plan.
Okay, purpose is key. What about cost?
The interest rate is the obvious cost. Higher rate means more of your payment goes to the lender, less to reducing what you actually owe.
Secured versus unsecured makes a difference here.
Big difference. Secured loans, mortgages, Car loans where the asset is collateral are usually cheaper because the lender has security. Unsecured loans, personal loans, credit cards are riskier for the lender, so they charge more.
Credit cards, they can be tricky, interest-free if paid off.
Yes, if you pay the full balance by the due date. But if you only pay the minimum and let the balance revolve, that's where the costs rocket.
You mentioned an example, 3% per month.
Yeah, sounds small, right?
Yeah.
But compound that monthly, and it's over 42% a year. It's incredibly expensive debt. Really erodes your wealth quickly.
Yeah.
Best avoided by paying in full.
Wow, 42%. That really hits home. And watch out for even higher rates from like payday lenders or pawnbrokers too, presumably.
Absolutely, those can be astronomical. Stick to regulated lenders if you possibly can.
Okay, cost is crucial. Then maturity, the loan term.
Right, how long you have to repay. Shorter term means higher monthly payments, puts more pressure on your cash flow now, even if the rate is slightly lower.
Longer term means lower monthly payments.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
But you end up paying significantly more in total interest over the life of the loan.
So there's a trade-off. How do you decide?
Your DTI, that debt-to-income ratio, helps here. It tells you what level of monthly payment is actually affordable for you, which then helps determine a suitable loan term.
Okay. Now, what happens if things go wrong? Someone's struggling to make payments. What can they do?
First thing is, don't ignore it. Take action quickly. A good step is to list all your debts. Rank them by interest rate highest first.
Focus on the most expensive ones.
Exactly. Typically credit cards, maybe personal loans. Put any extra money towards paying those down fastest. Another option, though not always easy, is selling the asset the loan paid for, if possible.
Like selling the car if you can't afford the car loan?
Potentially, yes. You need to factor in any prepayment charges, though. Also look at refinancing. Can you get a cheaper loan elsewhere to pay off the expensive one? Like a balance transfer for credit cards.
What about asking the lender to change the terms?
You can. Extending the loan term lowers the monthly payment, gives you breathing room, but remember, you'll pay more interest overall.
And talking to the lender directly.
Always recommended. Explain the situation, see if they can offer a revised schedule. Be aware, though, that formal restructuring can negatively impact your credit history.
Ah, credit scores. Let's unpack those. What are they exactly?
Okay, so your credit score is basically a number, usually between 300 and 900. It's calculated by credit bureaus companies licensed to do this based on your history of borrowing and repaying money.
And lenders use this score?
Heavily. They use it, along with your full credit report, to judge how risky it might be to lend you money. A good score makes a huge difference.
How so?
Better chance of getting approved for loans or credit cards, obviously. But also, you're more likely to get offered lower interest rates and better terms, which saves you money.
So how do you build a good score?
Consistency is key. Pay all your bills on time, every time. That's the biggest factor. Keep your credit utilization low.
Meaning, don't max out your credit cards.
Exactly. Try to use only a small percentage of your available credit limit. Having a mix of credit types, maybe a mortgage, a credit card can also help. And don't apply for lots of new credit all at once. Each application can cause a small, temporary dip.
What if you're a joint borrower or guarantor? Does that affect your score?
Yes, it absolutely can. If payments are missed on a loan you've guaranteed or co-signed, it will negatively impact your credit score too.
Good to know. Should we be checking our reports?
Definitely. It's wise to check periodically. Mistakes can happen, and errors on your report could unfairly lower your score. You have the right to get them corrected.
How do we get hold of our reports and scores?
You can request them directly from the credit bureaus. There are several major ones like Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, often known as CIBIL in some regions, CRIF, Highmark. You'll need to verify your identity.
Is it free?
You're actually entitled to one free full credit report from each of the main bureaus every year. That's mandated by regulators like the RBI in India, and similar rights exist elsewhere.
One free one per bureau per year.
Yes. And it should be the full report they provide to lenders, including your score and details of your loans for the last couple of years, usually. It should also explain how to dispute errors. You typically get it electronically after authenticating yourself.
That's really useful. Okay, let's zoom out again. Core principles of borrowing responsibly. What are the main takeaways?
Rule number 1, never borrow more than you can realistically afford to repay. Simple, but crucial.
Sustainable lifestyle over flashy appearances.
Exactly. Buy what you can genuinely pay for. If you use credit cards, aim to clear the full balance every single month. Avoid that revolving credit trap.
And prioritize borrowing for certain things.
Preferably for assets that might grow in value or generate income. Be cautious about taking on too many different loans, all at once that can really stretch your finances thin.
Okay. Now, let's nail down the difference between secured and unsecured loans again.
Right. Secured loans are backed by collateral, an asset the lender can claim if you default.
Like the house for a mortgage.
Precisely. Or the car for a car loan. Because the lender has this safety net, the interest rates are generally lower. Think mortgages, vehicle loans, loans against gold or securities.
And unsecured?
No specific asset backing them up. It's based purely on your promise to repay and your creditworthiness.
Higher risk for the lender.
So higher interest rates for the borrower, personal loans, credit card debt, those are typical examples.
Yeah.
The interest on credit card debt, as we said, can be particularly high if not cleared.
So the general advice is
Use secured loans for long-term assets where lower rates matter. Minimize unsecured debt, pay it off quickly because it's usually more expensive.
got it. You also ran through a lot of specific loan terms, fixed versus variable rates.
Yeah, important distinction. Fixed rate. The interest rate stays the same for the whole loan term. Predictable payments, good if you lock in when rates are low.
Variable or floating?
The rate can change over time, usually linked to a benchmark like the Bank of England base rate or RBI's repo rate, often preferred for long-term loans if you think rates might fall, but payments can go up too.
Home equity loan or loan against property.
That's borrowing against the value you own in your house, using your property as collateral for a loan for other purposes.
Hire purchase versus lease.
Hire purchase means you pay installments and eventually own the asset, like buying a sofa on terms. Lease is basically renting an asset for a period. The lender keeps ownership, like leasing a car.
Amortization. Sounds technical.
It's just the process of paying off the loan principal over time. Your regular EMI includes both principal and interest, but the proportions change, as we discussed earlier. More interest at the start,
Refinancing.
swapping an existing loan for a new one, usually to get a lower interest rate or maybe change the loan term, can save significant money on large long-term loans like mortgages,
Prepayment.
paying back some or all of the loan principal before the scheduled end date. Saves you interest, but check for any prepayment penalties or charges. Some loans, like floating rate home loans from banks in India, have restrictions on charging these.
Pre-EMI interest.
Interest-only payments made before the full loan amount is given out. Common with properties still under construction where the loan is dispersed in stages.
Moratorium. We heard that during COVID.
Yes, a temporary pause on having to make loan repayments, usually due to exceptional circumstances like a pandemic or natural disaster. Crucially, interest usually still accrues during the moratorium period.
Mortgage, pledge, hypothecation. All ways of securing a loan.
Essentially, yes. Different legal terms for how an asset is used as security. Mortgage usually refers to property. Pledge often involves the lender physically holding a movable asset, like gold. Hypothecation creates a charge over an asset, like a car, but the borrower keeps possession.
Okay, that clarifies a lot. And the types of loans are just as varied. Home loans, education, vehicle.
Right. Home loans, for buying property, long-term, secured by the property. Education loans, fund studies, often repayment starts after the course, shorter term usually. Vehicle loans, a medium term, car is hypothecated.
Business loans, personal loans.
Business loans, for business needs, based on business financials, can be secured or unsecured. Personal loans, very flexible, unsecured, but usually higher interest. Good for emergencies maybe, but used cautiously.
Credit card debt, overdrafts.
Credit card debt, short-term revolving credit, high cost if balance carried. Overdraft, lets you spend more than your account balance up to a limit, often secured. Interest only on the overdrawn amount. Flexible for short-term needs, common for businesses.
And loans against existing assets.
Loans against securities, stocks, bonds, gold, property, lets you leverage assets you already own, usually cheaper than personal loans if you have those assets.
What about P2P, peer-to-peer loans?
That's lending directly between individuals via online platforms, often unsecured, so it can be higher risk for the lender and thus higher interest for the borrower. Needs careful vetting on both sides.
Okay, phew, lots of types. Let's talk calculations. How much loan can someone actually afford? You mentioned EMIs.
Understanding the monthly payment, the equated monthly installment, or EMI, is step one. It's the fixed amount you pay each month.
And it covers principal and interest.
Correct. You can calculate it using online calculators or spreadsheet functions like PMT. The key inputs are the loan amount, the interest rate, and the loan term duration.
And small changes make a big difference.
Absolutely. A slightly higher interest rate or a shorter term can significantly increase that monthly EMI, pushing up your debt servicing ratio. It's also worth checking the lender's rest period, how often they calculate interest, as it can subtly affect the total cost.
What if someone's situation changes and they need to restructure an existing loan?
Yeah, that happens. Job loss, income cut. Restructuring means changing the loan terms. Often it involves lowering the monthly EMI.
How do they do that? Usually by extending the term?
That's the most common way. Longer repayment period means smaller monthly payments, provides immediate relief.
But the catch is,
You end up paying more interest overall because you're borrowing for longer. It's crucial to understand that trade-off. Look at the total cost.
you mentioned present value.
Yes, ideally you'd calculate the present value of the future payments under the new terms to see the true cost or benefit compared to the original loan. Sometimes, rarely, lenders might agree to a haircut, reducing the total amount owed.
Could restructuring mean a lower interest rate?
It can, yes. That would be a direct saving if the term stays the same. Sometimes restructuring involves taking an additional loan to pay the old one you need to scrutinize the terms of that new loan very carefully.
So the borrower really needs to understand the numbers behind the restructuring offer.
Absolutely. Don't just focus on the lower monthly payment. Understand the total cost implication.
And looking inside that EMI payment, the split between principal and interest, that changes over time.
Yes, significantly. Early on in the loan, most of your EMI payment goes towards paying the interest. Only a small bit reduces the actual principal you owe.
But later on,
The balance shifts. As the principal reduces, the interest portion gets smaller, and more of your fixed EMI payment goes towards clearing the capital. Spreadsheet functions like PPMT and IPMT show this breakdown month by month.
and the interest rate affects this split too.
Definitely. Lower interest rate means more goes to principal earlier. Higher rate means more goes to interest, especially at the start. Understanding this helps you see how much progress you're actually making on reducing the debt itself.
So when comparing loans, what are the absolute key things to look at?
Okay, number one, the interest rate, obviously, but also how it's calculated. Reducing balance is generally better.
For floating rates,
Look at the reset period. How often can the rate change? Shorter means you benefit faster if rates fall, but also get hit sooner if they rise.
fees,
Yes. Processing fees, admin charges, valuation fees, they all add to the total cost. Look for waivers or negotiate these.
loan term,
The tenor affects your EMI and total interest paid. Balance affordability now versus total cost later.
the benchmark for floating rates.
Check what it's linked to. External benchmarks like the base rate or repo rate are usually more transparent than a bank's internal benchmark. Banks often prefer floating rates when rates are uncertain.
And with those floating rates, when the benchmark does change, you often get a choice. Change the EMI or change the tenure.
That's a key decision point. Keeping the EMI the same and letting the tenure adjust is often simpler for budgeting. Your monthly outflow stays constant.
But if rates rise a lot,
Your loan term could stretch out much longer than originally planned. On the flip side, if rates fall, keeping the EMI constant means you pay the loan off faster.
when might you choose to change the EMI instead?
If rates fall significantly, reducing your EMI frees up monthly cash flow. Or if rates rise and the higher payment would cause real financial strain, you might opt to extend the tenure to keep the EMI manageable, even though it costs more long term.
Okay, common dilemma. You get a lump sum bonus, inheritance again, invest it, or pay off debt.
It's a classic question. Depends on a few things. How much debt do you have? If it's causing a lot of stress, paying it down brings huge peace of mind. That's valuable in itself.
And the amount of the lump sum relative to the debt?
Yes. Then there's the maths. Compare the interest rate on your debt with the potential return you could realistically expect from investing the money after tax.
High-cost debt is usually the priority.
Almost always. Credit cards, personal loans, the interest rates are often so high that it's very hard to reliably earn more by investing. Paying those off is often a guaranteed return.
But for lower-cost debt, like a mortgage?
It's less clear-cut. Investment returns, especially from equities, have the potential to be higher over the long term, thanks to compounding. But investments also carry risk. There's no guarantee.
So it's a balance of maths, risk tolerance, and psychological comfort.
Exactly. Sometimes, even if the potential investment return is only slightly higher, the long-term compounding effect could make investing mathematically better. But paying off debt might feel safer or reduce stress more.
Okay, last big area. Strategies to actually get out of debt faster.
Right, there are a few popular methods. The avalanche method.
Sounds dramatic.
Maybe. It means you make minimum payments on all debts, except the one with the highest interest rate. You throw every spare penny at that highest rate debt until it's gone. Then you tackle the next highest, and so on.
Ready that.
Mathematically, it saves you the most money in interest over the long run because you're eliminating the most expensive debt first.
Okay, what's the snowball method?
This one focuses on motivation. You list your debts by outstanding balance, smallest first, regardless of interest rate. You pay minimums on everything except the smallest debt. You attack that one until it's cleared.
Then move to the next smallest.
Exactly. You get quick wins. Paying off a whole debt, even a small one, feels good. It builds momentum and keeps you motivated to continue. You see progress faster.
Even if it might cost a bit more in interest overall compared to Avalanche.
Potentially, yes. It prioritizes psychology over pure maths.
Is there a hybrid?
Sometimes called the blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
You might start with the smallest debt, snowball, to get that quick win and build confidence, then switch focus to the highest interest rate debt, avalanche, to maximize savings going forward.
So knowing your exact balances and interest rates is crucial for any of these.
Absolutely fundamental. You can't strategize effectively without knowing exactly what you owe and what it's costing you.
This has been incredibly thorough. So quick recap. Debt is a tool. Can be useful, especially for big things, but needs careful handling.
Right. Understand the purpose, the real cost, including interest, and how it fits into your overall cash flow. That's essential.
Responsible borrowing, good budgeting, and a clear repayment strategy, they're the keys to financial well-being with debt.
Definitely. We had some key points. The hidden cost of revolving credit, thinking consciously about consumption versus investment spending, and those different ways avalanche, snowball to tackle existing debt.
So for you listening, maybe check your debt-to-income ratio. Start tracking spending if you don't already. Prioritize saving before discretionary spending. Really understand loan terms before you sign.
And if you have debt, think about which repayment strategy, avalanche, snowball, maybe the blizzard fits your situation and personality best.
Now that you've got this deeper understanding, what's maybe one small thing you could do today to take more control?
Could be tracking expenses for a week. Could be pulling that free credit report. Could just be listing out your debts to see the full picture. Any small step helps.
This deep dive gives you that foundation. We hope you'll explore the areas most relevant to you further. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.